Okay, hi grade 8. How you doing? This is Mr. Smith, and I'm just going to do a little quick recap or review of what we started in week 24 with Math 8, okay? So I'm going to do a little recap of linear relations, all right? I'm just going to test my pen out here. Does this work? And does my mouse work? Oh, it does. Isn't that wonderful? So what we learned in week 24, okay? Let's go with a little quick review of what we learned in week 24. So a linear relation, the clues are in the name, okay? We have linear, and there's a little root word in there, line, okay? And for relation, well, the whole word is significant in my opinion, okay? So we've got the whole word relation, and that would seem to imply what? To relate, or a relationship. In other words, a linear relation is a straight line in mathematics, okay? So something along like that, all right? It's a straight line in mathematics. And it always relates, okay? That's where we get the word relate coming from. It always relates two variables, x and y, to construct, all right? To construct or make that line. Now, technically, it doesn't have to be x and y, but I'm going to tell you to keep things simple in grade 8. And even when you encounter this in grade 10, it's going to be x and y. I don't know of any other teacher that doesn't use x and y, okay? All right, so here's a graphical example of a linear relation. All right, so there you go. You have a coordinate plane. You have the Cartesian plane, the x and y. Remember, this is your x-axis, and this is your y-axis, and then here's a line, okay? And that's basically a linear relation, all right? So let's move on to the next slide. How do we describe linear relations? Okay, so linear relations can be described or analyzed or looked at using one of three ways. And so I'm going to start with the most visual way. A visual graph is where the line is on the coordinate plane, the XY grid, okay? So like this. There's your line, and I've chosen some points. Now, those points are just chosen out of pure convenience or even randomness, grade 8s, all right? Just going to switch my color here. And so what I'm talking to you is there are lots of points. There's a point on the line, there's a point on the line, there's a point on the line, there's one down here. All of these points, right? All of these points belong to this line. And if your line extends indefinitely, then you basically have infinite points, okay? Infinite points. There's a point there, okay? I just want to prove to you that you don't have to limit yourself when it talks about points on a line, okay? There's an infinite amount of them, all right? So a linear relation can be visual, it can be a graph. How do we describe linear relations? So there's another way we can do it, a table of values. A table of values is where you have the line's points, and they're listed as x, comma, y, ordered pairs, organized in a nice little table. So like this. So if you remember from grade 7, ordered pairs are always written in the order of x, comma, y, all right? So in other words, if I were to pluck these ordered pairs out, I would just simply write them in brackets. There's -2, -3, -1, -1, 0, 1, 1, comma 3, 2, comma 5. Okay, that's a 2. All right, so you can use a table of values to list ordered pairs. A table of values is one way to describe a linear relation. Okay, what's another way? A linear relation equation where two variables x and y are related to each other. So x and y, they're related to each other through the equation. That's why it's in that different color, okay? Through the equation. So what does that look like? Well, there's a very typical one. And yes, this equation comes from this table of values. Or you could say it reverse too. The table of values comes from the equation. But the linear relation equation, table of values, and on the previous slide, a graph, that's the way you're going to describe. Okay? So, to summarize this, for instance, the example we used in this video, y equals 2x plus 1, it's just one specific linear relation between x and y that gives one specific graph and one specific table of values. In other words, they all connect and they match to each other, okay? So there's y is equal to 2x plus 1. There's the table of values that goes with y equals 2x plus 1. And there is the graph. All right, that's the linear relation equation. I called it the recipe during the week, right, when we were talking about recipes. There's the table of values, what I call the ingredients. And there's the graph, what I call the visual output. That's the visual output, okay? In other words, that's what your cookies and your pizza is going to look like, all right? And again, I can't emphasize this enough, grade 8s. These are all interconnected. They relate to each other. And we just basically started this, grade 8s. So what graph goes with this table of values, okay? So that was week 1. We focused on connecting the graph and the table of values. In the next few lessons, we will now introduce the actual equations and how to draw the connections here. And again, they go in both directions and in here, okay? All right, so that's just a quick recap and a summary of what we learned in week 1 of linear relations. I hope that helped. And like I said before, as always, if you have any questions, email me, throw me up on the Google chat, whatever works, okay? See you later.